Aloha and welcome to this screencast that will talk a little bit about the motivation for the RadGrad system. So the central problem is how are we going to improve the ICS degree program experience? And practically speaking, what I mean by that is how are we going to improve the outcomes for our students? How are we going to help them to have better professional opportunities after they graduate? So one way to look at this question of improvement is to look at the things that appear to be broken right now. And what I'm going to do is kind of summarize them by the set of four myths that computer science is just game development, that everybody around here are just gamers, that it doesn't take a lot of time to do it, and in fact, if you just take the classes that are specified in the academic handbook, you'll be fine, you'll get a great job. So let's look at each of these myths in turn. Um, the first myth, that computer science is just game development, I think that is a common misconception among students who are just entering the university, that are, their exposure to computer science has basically been limited to their little brother, older brother playing games. This graphic is an attempt to indicate just how broad the applications of computer science are. It really is a cross-cutting skill that can be applied to any knowledge-based discipline. So we need people with a diversity of interests, not just restricted to people who really enjoy C-pointer dereferencing. We need people that are interested in medicine, in manufacturing, in government, in physics, in business, in finance. Wide spectrum of areas. We need people who are interested in those disciplines from a knowledge-based analytical perspective. And so one of the goals of RadGrad is to give students a sense for the broad opportunities that await them once they have a degree. Second idea is that unless you've grown up playing console video games, you'll never succeed in computer science. That's a misconception that is very damaging to our field, and makes it unnecessarily more difficult for students who don't have that kind of background to succeed, because they might feel isolated or less prepared and at a disadvantage. And in fact, there's a lot of reasons why increasing the diversity of students in our discipline is good for society, and also those students are going to really step up the game of everybody else. So one of the things that we'd like RadGrad to do is to help help students understand that there are other students who aren't just male gamers that are involved in the discipline, and hopefully form communities of interest over lots of different areas that make our community more diverse and more open and supportive of people with a diversity of backgrounds and interests. Third myth, CS doesn't take much time. What I mean by this is what I see all too often, and very unfortunately, is students who, for one reason or another, are attempting to work full-time or nearly full-time and take a full load of computer science courses. That can have disastrous consequences. Here's a simple kind of anecdotal data set from a recent semester that shows that once students worked over 30 hours a week, they were failing. Okay, so that's something that we anecdotally notice a lot as faculty in the department, and we want to take steps to help students understand that if they really, really have to work full time, then what's in their best interest is to be a part-time student. Just take one computer science class and do well in it. It's going to, lengthen the time to degree, but flunking your classes or getting poor grades is no way to be ready to compete in the marketplace afterwards. And the final myth is that somehow just taking courses is the only thing you really have to do in order to be well prepared for the best jobs in computer science post-graduation. And one illustration of this is a page that was produced by Google for students and for students not just interested in working at Google, but really just interested in working at any of the kind of prominent Silicon Valley technology firms. And what you'll notice when you see this page is that there are lots of things that they're looking for in your background that you won't find in the classroom, that are extracurricular kinds of activities. And so another goal for RadGrad is to help students be aware of extracurricular activities and be aware of the importance of engaging in extracurricular activities. Maybe that means participating in a student group like ACM Manoa, or in the Gray Hats, which is a security-based student group, or participating in hackathons, or participating in a business plan competition. Lots and lots of different extracurricular activities which make you more attractive after you graduate to potential employers. So what we want to do in RadGrad is help students understand or disavow them of these myths as fast as possible by providing them with good data and good information about the reality. So what are the possible career paths? What is the diversity of students studying computer science, and how do I find them? Am I really, is the semester that I set up for myself in terms of my classwork and my job and my extracurricular activities, is that actually feasible? And given that I want to pursue a particular career path, be it staying on island and working in networking, or going to Silicon Valley and working in software engineering, or going to graduate school in artificial intelligence, am I doing the right things to be best prepared for that particular future? Okay, so how are we going to get there in RadGrad? So there's a definite bootstrapping process on multiple levels for this. And the first goal, I think, the first hurdle that has to be passed with RadGrad is to provide a better way to do degree planning for students and ICS advisors than they have now. And what they have now is not that interesting. It's this paper-based academic planner, and they kind of write things down in pen and pencil. So RadGrad, first and foremost, has to provide a system that advisors prefer to use to help students put together their computer science degree plan. And the way that we want to get there is by enabling the degree planner within RadGrad to represent what classes are taken for a particular semester, what extracurricular activities the student engaged in for a given semester, and what outside work were they doing for a particular semester. And importantly, this information should be available for prior semesters, every semester that they took a computer science class, their current semester, and even into the future. So the student can go ahead and say, well, next year what I hope to do is I hope to take these classes, and I hope to do these extracurricular educational activities, and I plan to work this much, and maybe all the way out until they've finished with their computer science degree program and they're ready to graduate. Based upon that information and information the students provide about their professional goals, hopefully the system can now provide feedback of two types. One, recommendations, being things that they say you should do X or you might not want to do Y in order to get to your professional goals. So you might want to work a little less in this specific semester because you've got these following classes you're planning to take. Or there's an important extracurricular activity which appears to be well correlated with success in your professional goal, the professional goal that you specified, and you're not showing that you're actually engaging in that extracurricular activity. So that the system can hopefully kind of debug what the student is planning to do and improve their degree program experience with respect to accomplishing the things both in the classroom and outside the classroom that appear to be correlated with success. Finally, the prediction mechanism is actually to say, well, let's say you want to go and get a PhD, be in a PhD program in artificial intelligence on the mainland, after you graduate. Based upon what you're doing now, I think the odds of you being able to succeed in that are X. Okay, so where are we now? This is January 2016. Happy New Year. I spent Christmas vacation hacking away in Meteor, and I'm happy to say that we've got some essentially Mongo scheme. Yeah, we've got some schemas for Mongo that implement what I perceive to be all of the major entities, collections that would be necessary to achieve this goal. Well, not all of them actually, but like enough to get started for sure. And I've also implemented a very rudimentary user interface that just basically, uh, you know, um, writes out the contents of these various collections, so it's easy to kind of see what's in there. Um, so that's available now, and that's part of this kind of bootstrapping process of, okay, we can now define students, we can define courses, we can define opportunities, um, and there is this persistent mechanism that's available now to store them and ways to query to get that stuff back. So that's good. So what do we want to do during this semester? Well, the first thing is we want to actually build up a sample database with a realistic set of courses, a realistic set of extracurricular activities, as well as quote unquote realistic set of students. Okay, and the classic way you do this is you define a persona, which is an archetype of a particular student. So there might be a student that wants to go to graduate school. There might be a student who wants to go to Silicon Valley. There might be a student who wants to stay here and work in television or whatever. And based upon those personas, we would provide sample data about the courses that they've taken and the grades that they've gotten and the extracurricular activities that they've gotten and so forth. So it's not a real person, but it's a representation of a potential person or a potential student. Along with populating the sample database, we have to build an initial user interface appropriate for the degree planning process, which is what happens when you go visit the ICS advisor. Once we have that, we go talk to the IC advisor, show them the system, get their feedback, and work until the advisors and we feel confident that we've actually built a system which is going to be better for degree planning than what they have now. Because that's kind of our initial goal for actually getting adoption of this system. Once we're there, the next step is to start working on this recommendation and prediction system so that based upon the data that's in the system, we can and the goals that are specified by students, we can actually go out and start saying to the students and building into the user interface, ways to recommend changes to what they're doing. Once that we have that all implemented, then we go out to students and we show them the system and we get feedback which helps us understand how close we are to having a system that students would want to use outside of the degree planning process. Okay, where do you go from here? If this all makes sense to you, then hopefully you are now well prepared to take a look at the actual RadGrad.org website. Okay, this is the home page for it. And what I recommend you do is you basically read through all of these different pages, okay, which provide little, paragraphs about each of the kinds of mechanisms available in the system. The organization page is not that interesting. Under development, once you kind of start to understand this, you might want to go to this data model page where I've provided diagrams that show kind of from an entity relationship diagramming perspective the relationships between the various entities in the system and how they're implemented in terms of Mongo collections. This will get more and more useful to you as you start to actually do programming, but it might be interesting for you to get a sense for that right now. These aren't all the entities and relationships in the system, but they are the major ones. Okay, so that's RadGrad. Let me know what you think, whether you think this is a good idea, whether there's important things that are missing. One of the things I really hope this semester is that you students are going to be able to bring your own expertise as a student to this process to make RadGrad even more useful than I'm hoping it will be. See you later.